And, well, you remember that President Tinubu had sent a request to the Senate seeking approval to appoint 20 advisors, special advisors, and he has used 8 out of that slot. And today, we can tell you from what the release from the State House, now we have the names of some of those who have been appointed as a special advisor on security, Mr. Nuhu Rabadu, who was a former EFCC chairman, and Mr. Wali Odun, who was appointed today as a special advisor on monetary policies. The president appointed Ms. Olu Vejeng as the special advisor on energy. Mr. Zacchaeus Adedeji has been as the special advisor on revenue. Others include John Uwajumogu, a special advisor on industry, trade and investment, and Salma Anas, special advisor on health. The appointment, we understand, takes immediate effect. Let's get a sense of what this means altogether. Don't forget to stick around with me, because I told you earlier that what Senator Bukuchua said is getting a lot of reactions, and those who are asking that investigation and prosecution should be done in the respect of what was said. And also, we look at what Senator Rochas Okorocha and the implication of what they said on the judiciary. Let's get talking about some of these issues. I'm being joined tonight by our former presidential spokesperson, Mr. Ima Niboro. He joins us virtually. Thank you so much, Mr. Niboro, for joining us. Sometimes ago, we were trying to look ahead to the inauguration. The inauguration has come. This is the 3rd week in the life of the Tinubu presidency. The appointment of today, 8 out of the 20 that the president has sought the Senate's approval. Well, we understand that some of these appointments do not need Senate approval in terms of then going through the rigor of being scrutinized by the Senate. So give us an understanding, the kind of atmosphere. You have been in that circle before. What do you think has been going on in the last few days? The president has been running with a very slim team. Now he's gotten 8 more people, but in special advisor roles.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm saying that President Bola Tinubu has hit the ground running very much the way those of us with an impressive track record. And so far he has vanquished and invalidated the fears of many Nigerians who made all kinds of assumptions about age, about this, about that. But you're seeing the sheer capacity that he has brought into governance in just 3 weeks. His appointments so far have been commendable. Well, usually these things take time. The appointment of special advisors had to wait for the Senate clearance for the positions, because you can't just appoint without the Senate giving you the slots on these appointments. And I think usually what you see is that the president, these first set of appointments, like I always say, are usually from people he knows well, people he trusts, people he has been with, people who know him very well, who without speaking understand him, know his direction, know where he's going to. So these are some of the people you've seen in this initial team now. Somewhere like Dele Alake, we all know the relationship between him and the president. They've been together for years. Nuhu Rabadu, also a constant around the president for many years now. So you see that these appointments, more appointments will come. Usually the first set of appointments are from an inner circle kind of people that already know his mind. He doesn't really need to be introduced to or them introduced to him. So I think so far, so good.
Now, there are some nomenclature that are not very common. We've not seen them in a long time. Communication and strategy, advisor on security. There are those who are confusing and wondering whether it is the national security advisor or just an advisor on security. What can you tell us about these nomenclatures and some of these roles?
Well, let me talk about the advisor on special duties, communications, and strategy. You remember that Dele Alake was the first commissioner in Nigeria, I hope my memory serves me well, that was appointed as Commissioner for Information and Strategy in Lagos during the then Governor Bola Tinubu's first term. You see, that nomenclature became the norm in other states, but it started in Lagos with Dele Alake. And that tells you that his role as Commissioner of Information then was not just to disseminate information, but also it was part of the strategic team. It's part of the strategic planning of governance. And that is what has also been transported to the presidency. He is in charge of special duties, which means he can undertake assignments that are not within the description of his special advisor role. Because of his closeness to the president, he takes on very crucial assignments on behalf of the president, on behalf of government. So that's why you see special duties there. Then communications, of course, that's his core discipline. He's a very senior colleague of ours, which we all know, highly respected. And then you have the same strategy that tells you that he's not just somebody who's not just going to be a talking head, he's also a thinking head, one of the heads that the president is counting on to define the direction of his governance. So his appointment is very clear, very commendable. Nuhu Ribadu, Special Advisor Security, very commendable one. Very experienced police officer, retired as AIG, with a lot of knowledge of Nigeria and especially challenges of the Northeast, that area he also comes from. Many would think that he's probably a placeholder for the NSA position, but nobody knows. You cannot say for sure. So right now, he will play his role as Special Advisor Security to the President, and it will depend on the President to take a decision going forward what he wants to do, whether to make him NSA or to create an independent office within the presidency again for him. All these are within the prerogative of the president. It's really hard to dictate to the president what he wants to do because he sees in individuals certain kind of attributes that he needs to work with. And that's what you are seeing so far in these appointments.
Let me bring in Professor Jide Ofor-Adibe. Professor Jide Ofor-Adibe has since joined us. Thank you so much, Prof. Professor Jide Ofor-Adibe is a political scientist and is a professor of political science and international relations at the Nasarawa State University, KEFI, an extraordinary professor of governmental studies at the Northwestern University, Mafeking in South Africa, and is also a columnist. Thank you so much indeed, Prof, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Third week of President Tinubu, what is your assessment? I saw your article the other day.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been action-packed, and so far, one thing he has been able to show that people who are concerned about whether he has the stamina to do the job, I think he's trying to prove them wrong. On the other hand, a number of policies unleashed at the same time will also raise some concerns. For example, the removal of subsidies has not properly cascaded through the system, through the entire value chain, so we don't know how that's going to work out. And then came this announcement of, the flotation of our forex. So if that leads to inflationary pressure, at the same time, the removal of subsidy has on its inflationary pressure at the time when the wages are stagnant. So how would that work out? So every policy has unintended consequences. And one of the concerns, good policy when you announce, for example, taking off student, signing this bill on student loan, which is the common practice in the Western world. But that raises also the question of whether you can transfer one policy from one environment to another without tinkering with it. Even at a smaller level, how many people repay, loans given to them? I would have preferred, rather than doing so many, we have a few and see how it works, and then deal with some of the unintended consequences of that policy, and then, that will have my take. But so far, so good in my own opinion. And he has tried to appoint people that are not controversial. There are certainly people many of us will not want to see in the list because they will make the job of post-campaign reconciliation more difficult. People who have promoted provincialism, who have promoted, xenophobia of all sorts, and people who are extremely controversial. And so far, he has seemed to, keep them aside. He will still probably find something for them, but certainly, in my own opinion, not in the front row of his own administration.
I call them the very first, Tinubu's first 8. This is, he's had a few people, the chief of staff and all of you, in that sense, but this is his very first appointment. Yeah. And these special advisors will assume some kind of cabinet sitting also. They might also have a chair within the cabinet meetings, which we have seen in the past happening. So with the quality and the areas and the position that he has allotted to some of these people, for example, a specific office for monetary policies.
Yep.
Mr. Wale
Edo, who is very, very highly respected.
Yes, and you know his background. Olu Vanjen also, we know, young person, but a lady in the mix and comes with her own experience of almost 2 decades in the energy and renewable energy sector. The likes of Zacchaeus Adedeji, who is the chair of the Sugar Council, is also a first-class accountant. The likes of Mr. Dele Alake. Well, these are people that have been with him all along. Talk about Mr. Nur Abadu. He's also been John Wajumogo. Now, look at the position, for example. SA Revenue, SA Energy, SA Monetary Policy. These are critical, specific. Areas, What do you make? What do you think was in the mind of the president when he was putting these names across these positions?
If you ask me, some of these people are going to be even more powerful. Members of the kitchen cabinet can be more powerful than even the ministers because they are much more trusted. And the ministers, many of them will come in, to satisfy the political IOUs. So I'm extremely in people like Alake. I have a lot of respect for him. I'm not so sure about. I just hope Ribadu, has matured with time. I'm not more among those who.
Yeah, not his fan.
No. I think I will give you. I wouldn't give him pass mark when he was the first EFCC chairman. He was rather too combustible, and it has happened with all the other EFCC chairmen that the tendency to believe that it is a show of force, that you need to show that you're fearless, rather than the use of your brain and intelligence. And the hope is that with time, that age and the passage of years will have led to Ribadu maturing and learning the areas where he made mistakes, because he really played a part in damaging the democracy during the period of Obasanjo appointed him. So we just hope he has grown, he has matured more, and that obviously the demands of intelligence, being an intelligence advisor, whether we call it national security advisor, whatever.
Because he said, do you think, because it's
whatever the
but if you see the way that Bola Tinubu operated in Lagos, for example, and some of the nomenclatures that he gave, and in fact that also transmitted into when Fashola became governor also, perhaps one of the first time that we see the likes of his advisor on the media and strategy sitting in cabinet. And that's the position of someone who served as a CPS. CPS will not naturally sit in cabinet, but you see this kind of thing happening. So you look at how President Tinubu perhaps is trying to image or put together his team and the kind of nomenclature that he has attached to this position. Those who are mixing, whether this is a national security advisor or an advisor that is personal to the president.
In the past couple of years, it's always been the domain of the military. So we don't know his mind, but it could also be one way of not trying to hurt the ego of the military. We call him an advisor. That could be one way. It is also possible that a simple change of nomenclature, we don't really know until we have never had two security advisors. So it can actually be argued that if he makes it the norm, I mean, if it goes by the precedent, there's only one security advisor, then whether you call him national security advisor or special advisor does not matter. But if he's trying to balance competence and political IOU, how to co-opt some of his core loyalists.
That may be dangerous.
No. Every politician has to do that.
Especially because of some key roles. Sometimes you have to look at professionals. Those who have advocated
there are also
that
people who made
their key roles.
Their politicians are also made by their loyalists.
But if there are IOUs and you don't find fitting into those critical areas, economy, security, these are areas experts have said.
I mean, he's a retired AIG, in politics. So he has, this rivalry between the military and the police in terms of who should be in control of internal security. It could be playing out. So if you really, I know we had policeman Gambo who was NSA at a point, but that tension has always been there. It could be one way he tries to resolve that tension, get a former policeman who is a special advisor, and then without hurting the feelings of the military top-notch, and still retains the NSA. We don't know. With time, we have to, these things will have to play out, and we'll have a fuller picture of what his thoughts are.
Mr. Limboro, let me bring you back to the conversation. You are being in that cycle, so I need you to help us make a sense of these working relationship from President Obasanjo to President Yar'Adua and the working template of President Jonathan. From years to years and from administration to administration, there's been change in style in which how they use their team, and in fact, how their chief of staff worked when we had two chief of staff in the villa, when we had one of them, and a whole lot of these issues that came up. Different nomenclature work for different presidents. But, I mean, have you seen a situation where we had more powerful special advisors at the villa?
Well, I need to make a little bit of clarification. I overheard you talking about chief press secretaries not attending cabinet meetings. I don't think that's quite correct, because in the presidential villa, the special advisor on media actually attends all the president's meetings, except specific meetings where the president requests him not to be there for whatever reasons.
I was making reference in the case of the states, where CPS governors usually don't attend cabinet meetings. But in Lagos, Akim Bello was appointed a media advisor to Fashola, and he was sitting in cabinet. So, I mean, I was making reference to the fact that from Tinubu days, the nomenclature slightly changed to what people were used to and what happened in other states, like you inferred.
Yes, Excellency. So that's very key, because and now this special advisor has been appointed. It's a very, very important one, because it's somebody that knows the mind of the president. They've been together for years. They're very close. So that's a key appointment. And through the years, governments have liberty. It's a matter of nomenclature, actually. The job is a special advisor. In fact, there are those who actually want to argue that even the chief of staff is really a special advisor, because that the role of chief of staff is actually unknown to the Nigerian public service organogram. So it is actually at the discretion of the president. Sometimes we used to ask, when I was in the villa, we used to joke with the chief of staff that we as special advisors, our positions are on the organogram, yours is not. But, well, he is more powerful. He's actually the head of the president's entire team. So everything depends on how the president wants to get things wrong. Like the issue we talked about of the special advisor on security, yes. The president, it is presidential prerogative. He is the president. I always say, I remember when Jonathan was president, I was MD then. That was when these issues of insecurity were really, really biting very hard. And I made a proposal to him then that, look, beyond these issues of special advisors and all that, you have an NSA, excellent, very powerful position. But I also proposed then that we should have a Ministry of National Security and upgrade whoever the special advisor is to become a minister, a full-fledged minister of cabinet in charge of national security that takes teams from all the security services working under him in fluid command and control system. That was my proposal at that time, although the president then also told me that, well, the country was already difficult in terms of finances, that creating a new ministry will now come with the entire overhead of minister, permanent secretary, right down to staffing, etc., etc. So I think that's why he did not quite agree to go in that direction. So whatever role you give, if, for instance, we had that kind of ministry today, a Nuhu Ribadu would have been perfect to be the minister in charge of national security, something that is built around the concept of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So that would have been perfect for him. That doesn't mean that the NSA office still exists in that wise. In the U.S., the NSA office exists side by side with the Department of Homeland Security. So that would have been a very natural fit for somebody like Nuhu Ribadu without having to touch the natural echelon of the NSA position that usually has deferred to the military through the years, although it actually started from the special branch, which was the old, the old external intelligence service there many years ago. So that would have been perfect for Nuhu Ribadu, but well, like we all know, every government has its own prerogative, and usually governments have an eye
just a moment. There are those who believe that the national security advisor position, it cannot be a prerogative issue because it is enshrined in the Constitution. It cannot be altered because it is cast in the Section 318 of the Nigerian Constitution. And so that's why some people are of the opinion that there will still be an NSA, because that is the provision of the Constitution.
Excellent. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Shehu. You see, if the NSA position is there by law, it has to be there. So if you want to avoid it, if you want a Nuhu Ribadu with all his experience, all his knowledge, he will have even be more effective as a minister of national security or minister of internal security, whatever you want to call it, so that the NSA remains there, because by tradition, as the prof said just now, by tradition, all the NSAs of late have been military generals, because the service chiefs actually, although they actually function in relationship with the NSA, many times they actually defer to the office of NSA. I know, for instance, that most service chief appointments are actually done on the recommendation of the city NSA at that time. So you find that they defer to the NSA, and usually that NSA, because he's a retired military person, probably very senior to them, is somebody they will have worked with, they will have functioned under one capacity or the other. Usually they draw from the army, which is the biggest of the three armed services. And usually, because of this, you find that there is a fluid command and control system between the office of the NSA, the service chief, all working together under the commander-in-chief. But in this regard, I think we need a little bit of tinkering to see if we can give Nuhu Ribadu a stronger voice and a stronger role.
Thank you so much, Mr. Imaniboro. Thank you so much indeed for the insight and the benefit of sharing your experience working in the presidential villa with us tonight. Thank you so much indeed.